Okay. Bwrdd croeso pawb. Good morning and welcome to this extraordinary meeting of the Digital Health and Care Wales Board. I'll come on to what it's about in a second, but please forgive me if I step out of line or get something wrong. This is my first board meeting. I took over as chair on October the 1st after Bob Hudson's interim period on the 30th of September, and I've been trying to get around and meet all of you as quickly as possible, both on the board and outside the board, and we'll continue to do that over the next few weeks within and outside DHCW. So as I mentioned, this is an extraordinary board meeting to specifically ask the boards to consider the Laboratory Information Network Cymru contract award. And I'll just do the necessary housekeeping, and it used to be the necessary housekeeping was here. This is where the fire exits are and there's no fire alarm planned, but as we know, things are slightly different now. So in line with continuing guidance, we're working from home as much as is possible, so we continue to hold these board meetings live and provide an opportunity for anyone with internet access to follow the meeting in real time, but also in the interest of openness and transparency, as you know, that if people wish to catch up on the meeting and view the meeting later, they can do through the YouTube link on our website. As I am doing, you will see people not looking into the camera directly, for which we apologise, but it's just necessary to follow the papers of the meeting. It's not that we've any way lost interest in the meeting, I can assure you. The idea is, or the aim is, that we will finish this meeting by 10. I anticipate it might be slightly before that. And I don't think there's anything else I need to do by way of preliminaries. I'll move on into the formal part of the agenda, and apologies for absence. And I don't think, Chris, we've had any apologies for absence. So if we can just note that. Declarations of interest. I've not been advised of any specific conflicts of interest not recorded that would relate to the item that we're considering. And unless anyone raises anything, no, I'll move on to section 2 of the agenda, the main part of the agenda, to approve, as I mentioned, the contract. And I'll invite Michelle Sell, the Chief Operating Officer, to present the strategic procurement report for the link contract. And before handing over to Michelle, your board members will recall in a meeting where I wasn't the chair, where Bob was the chair, the last meeting on the last day of September, that the full business case was formally approved by the board on 30th of September. Michelle.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. Yes, there's quite a lot of detail in the papers as set out. There are some key points that I was just going to call out for the board's benefit this morning before we move to a decision. As Simon has helpfully reminded, when we met as a board on the 30th of September, we considered the full business case for the link programme and the proposed investment, and we approved that as a board. Today we're looking at the proposed contract award to Citadel, and that contract is a key part of the investment that was set out in the full business case. Also worth noting, I think, for the benefit of our board, that in the same round of meetings, all of the health boards and the applicable trusts also considered the full business case, and they all approved the full business case. And that's particularly important, and the reason that we are taking this issue separately as a board, because in approving the full business case, they've also committed to enter into their own form of contract, which I will come on to release resources, to commit funding, to support the programme of work. So I think that's important that we had that confirmation before we moved forward with the contract award. So I'm just going to rehearse quickly a bit of a reminder in terms of the governance of the link programme, because that provides the context, I think, in terms of the decision that we will make today. So link was established as a programme in 2018. It's actually led by the NHS Wales Health Collaborative, which is an organisation that operates on behalf of the chief executives in Wales. And the key purpose of establishing the programme really was because we had to replace the current Laboratory Information Management System, or LIMS as I will refer to it now, and we also wanted to look then at the wider opportunities to move forward the delivery of pathology services in Wales. There's a programme board that sits to manage the LINK programme. It's actually chaired by Adrian Thomas, who's one of the directors up in Betsy Cadwallader Health Board. And there's a full-time programme director. So Judith Bates is the programme director who leads for LINK. On the programme board, also there are representatives from all of the health boards and the applicable trusts. And I'll use the term applicable trusts. In this sense, I'm excluding the Welsh Ambulance Service Trust, who don't take a pathology service, but all others have an interest. They're all represented on the board, as well as kind of key subject matter experts. And there's quite a large project team that has undertaken the specific work in question under the guidance of the board. So the board, as I said, have directed the procurement for the laboratory information system. They approved the procurement strategy, which sets out the approach that would be taken and the objectives. They would have specifically approved all of the requirements and contract documentation that make up the agreement going forward. And they have approved the recommendation to award to Citadel as a result of a very detailed evaluation undertaken by the project team. So I'm just going to touch a little bit on the procurement, high level, and obviously happy to take questions that the board may have. So the procurement was undertaken as a competitive dialogue. I'm not assuming that everyone's a procurement expert. I was just going to give some high levels in terms of what that means for us, really. And also to note, Digital Health and Care Wales were leading the procurement in the sense that the procurement experts within our commercial team were providing the advice and guidance with external legal advisors and external commercial advice, which we tend to use for an investment of this significance. So competitive dialogue under the public contract regulations is chosen because it allows us to really drill into the detail and get into quite a detailed discussion with potential providers to ensure that they really understand what it is that we're trying to achieve, what we're looking for in terms of a solution. And we conversely have the opportunity to really drill into their solutions and that solution in the wider sense. So that's the technical solution they're putting forward, also aspects in terms of commercial, contractual and support going forward, which again I think is really important in terms of this scale and this type of investment. So in terms of that procurement, we had quite good interest. It's a reasonably competitive market for these services. So we had 8 reasonable suppliers who responded through the pre-qualification stage. Those were then long-listed to 5. 5 suppliers were invited to respond to our detailed requirement specification. And an evaluation of those responses resulted in the 3 suppliers who were then taken into the dialogue. And the dialogue is where we really drill into the detail of the offers available to us. All 3 suppliers are taken through the whole process. So at the point that you go and invite formal tenders, all 3 suppliers we would have worked up in effect a form of contract with them and have a really quite a detailed understanding of their offer for NHS Wales. And then we have quite a complex and detailed evaluation, as you might expect, which resulted in the recommendation to award to Citadel. So I've just got a couple of other comments I wanted to call out in the paper in terms of the contract that we are proposing to enter into. So the contract that Digital Health and Care Wales are considering is a master services agreement. So what that means, in effect, it's a form of framework. It's a framework with commitment to buy. That's the main difference, really. It sets out in quite a lot of detail what the requirement is, what the terms and conditions will be, how the pricing will work, how support will work, all of the key aspects of the agreement going forward. But it is creating an umbrella, and the intention is that each of the health boards and trusts will then enter into their own deployment order, which is in effect a direct contractual agreement between the health board and the supplier themselves. So we've created this commercial vehicle really so that we've got kind of responsibilities and management in the most appropriate places. So the health boards obviously will be managing their own implementations. They will have a direct contractual relationship in order to enable them to do that. So I think that model is different to the model that was previously taken for the old or outgoing LIMS system. So the Master Services Agreement from our perspective as a body has a term of 7 years. It can go up to 9 years with extensions. The deployment orders that the health boards and trusts will enter into and have committed to enter into with the approval of the FBC at their boards will have a term of 5 to 7 years. So they will enjoy, we call it enjoying a term of service for 5 to 7 years. The exception to that is Cardiff and Vale. So Cardiff and Vale have stepped up to be first, and they will be leading in terms of the design, configuration, test and deployment of the solution. It's a common solution for all parties, so they will be leading that, working with the other health boards and trusts. So they have a longer term on their agreement to enable that process to be completed under contract, so that they can also enjoy a term of service then of 5 to 7 years to make an appropriate recovery on the investment that they will be making. So those were the key points I just wanted to point out, Chair, if that's okay. Happy to take any questions. But I think as an organisation, I think our risks and liabilities, if you like, are controlled to the extent that we will be entering into the Master Services Agreement. They're actually quite low for us contractually, but obviously we will also have a role in supporting our Health Board and Trust colleagues in managing their own contractual agreements.
Thank you, Michelle. I don't see anyone at the moment who's got any questions, but I'll just give it a moment. Of course, oh, David Selway, you've got a question. Over to you, David.
Thanks, Simon. Michelle, thanks for the briefing. I note in the appendix that we have a couple of goals around opening up the architecture to our sharing and big data analysis. Are we intending to extract the data out of the link into our NDR platform? And if that's the case, have we got the costs for the integration to NDR covered either in this contract or somewhere else in the NDR programme costs?
Good question, David. So within this contract, we would have the ability to extract the data. And actually, that's one of the enhancements, improvements, probably the right word, from this to the previous agreement. There's a lot more in the contract around our ability to extract and analyse data, both within the system and outside of the system. I think the costs in terms of moving that data into NDR and the objectives that we have within the NDR programme, I would expect would be met within the NDR programme. I don't know if anyone else wants to comment on that. Helen may want to comment on that from an NDR perspective.
I know Rowan wants to come in, but on this point, Helen, did you want to come in? Don't feel yes. Helen, yes, go on then.
Thank you, Simon. Thanks, Michelle. Yes, so and I suppose just to be clear, we already in the current arrangements with the current LIMS system, we in a live environment actually extract all of the information in order to surface that in the digital health and care record. And yes, that data does then actually go on to be used for other uses. So the cost of actually maintaining that and improving on that and maximising the opportunity that the National Data Resource and Big Data provides us would be covered in the National Data Resource Programme.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Helen.
Does that cover your points, David?
Yes, it does. Thanks, Simon.
Okay. Rowan.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Michelle. Thank you for the briefing. We're going to have a period where we're going to be parallel running the old system and the new system in Wales. And as the LIMS supports diagnostic testing, it's mission critical for NHS Wales. So what additional resources have we planned to support the dual running, and are these new roles or are they within our current budget?
Really good point. Thank you, Rowan. And in fact, we had a planning meeting earlier this week on that, because you're right, as we are the party that operates the electronic test requesting and results service, for example, which will need to now communicate with 2 LIMS systems during transition. In fact, it's a slightly more complicated environment than that, because we do have some legacy products already running in our health boards. So that the management of that, we're getting into the detailed planning on that now as we speak, now that we know which solution that we're moving forward with, and we will get into that planning with both providers. We have identified additional resource that we'd required as an organisation in order to do that, and that was included in the full business case, and we have got confirmation of funding. We'll also need, and the reason we were having the conversation earlier in the week is to make sure it's factored into our IMTP. So there will be work starting from now, really, and some of our team will be involved in the early configuration setup stages, for example, and that will run out through the implementation. The point I didn't say, I think we've discussed previously, is transition will take us out till 2025, really. This is not a quick process, really, to move from A to B, but you're absolutely right. You know, there will be a period when there will be a fair amount of complexity running in the system, and we will be working through the detail of how that's going to work in practice, really. I think there's also a factor then between the health boards. So the health boards also exchange work and have links between them in terms of they manage workload through the lab. So we will also be, involving them in those discussions to think about, okay, what does that mean in terms of the phasing of the go live? How much can you pull out that phasing process? How much of it needs to be done in quite a focused stage, really, so that you don't have to manage that complexity for a long period of time. So we've got quite a lot of work to do, I think, in the next 6 months now in terms of detailed planning with Citadel and with our legacy provider.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Rowan. Anyone else got any questions? I did see Helen pop up in the chat, but then she disappeared. But I don't know whether. No, it doesn't look like she wants to come in. That's fine. Michelle, is there anything you want to add in conclusion?
No, I don't think so. I
Okay.
think we're just looking for the approval of the board, and the plan is to execute the agreement, then the master services agreement, as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. So the board has been asked to approve the contract as detailed in Appendix 1 for LIMS, the Laboratory Information Management System. Unless I see anything to the contrary, I'm seeing some people saying approved. Give it a moment. This is the sort of the Eurovision moment, isn't it? Very different from when you're around a table. Yeah, it looks like that's fine, Michelle. So we have approved that contract award, and I'll move on to closing matters. I've had no any other urgent business communicated to me. Okay, so if I say diolch yn fawr pawb and close the meeting and extend many thanks to all those who've joined and indeed observed the meeting today. The date of the next meeting is the 25th of November, which will be a normal full board meeting. Thank you all very much indeed. Have a very good day.